Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Mark Steiner. Great to have you all with us. When Facebook announced the launch of a new currency, some call it cryptocurrency, some say it's not, but it's called Libra, the reaction was swift and negative for many quarters, from left to right, libertarian to socialist, from progressive and conservative experts alike. But many differed on why Libra would be a bad idea. Maybe it's not. A cryptocurrency controlled by Facebook may turn Facebook into an even more state-like institution, some say, with its own internal economy, the ability to impose economic policies on its customers as if they were citizens of a state. Most important for most analysts and people paying attention to any of this is that Libra seems to give Facebook even more power to control our private data, with the ability to use unprecedented alleged currency for a tool for surveillance. Will that happen? In the white paper written by Facebook about Libra, the following short text was buried, which might shed light on what Libra is really all about, and many have used this one piece to talk about. The quote is, an additional goal of the association is to develop and promote an open identity standard. We believe that decentralized and portable digital identity is a prerequisite to financial inclusion and competition. Well, to parse through all of this jargon and confusion, we once again turn to Bill Black. Bill Black, of course, the author of The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. He teaches economics and law at the University of Missouri-Kansas City, and was the executive director of the Institute for Fraud Prevention from 2005-2007, and a central figure in exposing the congressional corruption during the savings and loan crisis. And Bill, good to have you back.
Thank you.
So where do I begin? There's so many places to start this. Let me just start with, can we just take maybe a minute and a half for you, once again, for our viewers, to define this notion of cryptocurrency and what Libra has to do with that?
Okay, but the reason there's what you refer to as confusion is because there's confusion inherent in this design. And here's what I mean by that. Libra can be changed at any time to do virtually anything by a 2/3 vote of a quote-unquote association. This association is made up of the usual for-profit actors in the world, the big credit card companies, et cetera. And more private for-profit entities can buy in. So they can make Libra into most anything that is conceivable to make. And any promises that it won't be used in certain ways are completely hollow, because Facebook is not going to run Libra like we would trust if Facebook did run Libra. But, even if Facebook gave us promises, which it's done in the past and lied about, and somehow we believe that this would never occur again, and if Facebook had turned over a new leaf, Facebook doesn't control it. A bunch of other really nasty entities control it.
Like who? Like what? What do you mean by that? Like what?
Like credit companies, credit card companies, and such own it. And whoever wants to, whoever finds that it would be sensible to take over this organization can take it over, get a 2/3 vote, and then Libra they can make into almost anything.
Well, let me just ask a quick question here, because there's a lot to parse through in the 10, 15 minutes that we have together. So who are these organizations? What do we mean by that? I mean, Libra was created by Facebook as allegedly some kind of account mechanisms. People could buy things online and whatever else that we're going to do, which we'll talk about. But who is this association? What do they have to do with Libra if it was founded by somebody else?
Okay, so this is in large part, watch my left hand, watch my left hand.
I never did trust you, Bill.
I can understand. And I think no one trusts Facebook. As you said, this is the universally hated corporation. The right is like, the libertarians are writing say, God, the government has to protect us from these people.
And we all use it.
Type of thing. And so, is it a cryptocurrency? Well, that's a never, never land of what the hell the definitions are. I would say no. What it is a system that uses blockchain, but anybody can use blockchain. Blockchain is simply a technology that widely distributes information and keeps a registry so that certain information, not nearly most frauds, much less all frauds, are more difficult, all right? Now, it's still vulnerable to all kinds of computer attacks that would create all kinds of spurious information, and Bitcoin, for example, would break down instantly if it were subject to an effective attack that way that created tons and tons, by which I mean literally millions of pieces of false information. So anything that uses blockchain is subject to that kind of computer harassment. The currency isn't really a currency, right? It says what you get is a right to something that is created in a reserve. Who controls this reserve fund? Well, that would be this association of for-profit folks, of which all the worst actors in the world are going to be members, right? And already are such members. So what can they do? They can buy currency, but if they do that, you don't pay interest on currency, you may have noted, and these clowns are going to want to make lots of interest. So they're also allowed to do bonds and other such things. And as I noted, with a 2/3 vote, they can invest in anything like toxic mortgages.
So let me ask you a question here with that. So I was going to wait till later in the conversation to do this, but let me do it now. So as a person who's a regulator, should regulators take an interest in this? I mean, when we have a financial crisis, they always seem to start with an unregulated sector somewhere, right? And Libra will, in fact, some people have written that Libra will in fact be like a giant shadow bank. And if regulators are concerned about that effect, Libra's effect on anything, financial stability, they have to come up with a solution. So does that mean that Facebook has to become a regulated bank, subject to capital liquidity requirements, like happened to Goldman Sachs, anybody else? I mean, does that fall into this category? How do you, so there are two aspects of what I think we have to talk about in terms of control. Let's start with this one.
Okay, so it isn't like a shadow bank, it is a shadow bank.
It is a shadow bank.
And if it wants to, it can become extraordinarily shadow, right? It, with a 2/3 vote, could invest in anything. It could take your money and buy Macau, gaming, gambling joints type of thing. If the People's Republic of China decides to buy a majority share, it could turn all of its investments into the PRC. And such. So lots of things could happen. We don't know what they'll happen, and they could happen incredibly rapidly with no notice, precisely because this thing will be regulated by no one. And because these institutions that control it will have conflicts of interest and incentives to do lots of wild and crazy things to increase their yield.
So that's frightening aspect number one about the future.
Yeah, that's just one.
Right? So Frances Coppola in the Forbes wrote a really interesting piece about this, and she wrote for her that the real concern for Libra was that their business model is to harvest, monetize data, as she wrote. And she says that's not changing. That's who they are. And so what she found the sentences we started with, there's sentences buried in the white paper, that imply the real aim is creating Libra to get us to store these global digital identities that they'll control. And that should be really scary. I mean, people like Dave Birch from Console Hyperion is really kind of pushing this idea. There are no throwaway remarks for Facebook, he wrote, that this is the real danger here. And that's also uncharted and unregulated territory in many ways. So to me, that's danger number two, and as big as danger number one.
Yeah, I agree. That's number two. And here again, stop me when this sounds familiar. All we have is Facebook saying we don't intend to do it this way, but there's nothing binding on us and we can change tomorrow. And again, if you believe Facebook, which I think is a group of about 12 people, all of whom work for Facebook. The other folks who work for Facebook also don't trust Facebook.
So Facebook came out with, if I remember correctly, this thing Zynga. This game where people play this Farmville kind of game and had its own currency, and they would spread money around, and they spent millions of dollars, billions of dollars making money for Facebook. But so that was a game. But this is something different. But they intend to make the same amount of money or more.
Yeah, and it is incredibly dangerous. It will provide them with all kinds of information that they will profit from. Remember, almost all the really biggies, what they're really doing is not whatever the surface thing is that they tell us, is they're getting data, which
Right.
they then sell to other folks. Or sometimes they buy the companies that monetize the value of that information. And so they know all kinds of things about people, and a lot of that information is valuable to others. For example, lenders. So lenders are already trying to figure out, for example, are you a much riskier borrower if at 2 a.m. You're buying porn as opposed to buying sundries at
Right.
Amazon type of thing. Right, so that's not so great directly, but it also means that there's information that's embarrassing. And that means that there's a market for blackmail as well. And also, of course, intelligence agencies go into these kinds of services and go, what kind of dirt do they have on Fred? Because we would like to get Fred to be an agent. And embarrassing stuff is one of the ways to recruit intelligence assets and such. So, yeah, you're going to get all kinds of things like that. Now, I know the cliche is that younger people don't care as much about privacy as old fogies and such. But, as soon as they have kids.
No, I mean, I think there are a lot of young people who are worried about this, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll change right quick.
So while we have this time together, I mean, so you spent, you were a regulator, and I'm wondering why it's so difficult to regulate currency like Libra than it is to regulate the dollar or the euro. Talk a bit about what the difficulties are here, and what has to happen to change that, if in fact that can be changed.
Well, I mean, the easy answer is it shouldn't exist. So the regulation
Libra should not exist.
Should consist of the word no, or if you feel emphatic, no, hell no, type of thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Again, this is what Volcker has been trying to emphasize. He said, just once, I'd like some proof that a financial innovation actually made the world better. And he says, in the last 50 years, the only one that he can think of that made the world better was the creation of the ATM, which, again, I don't think millennials use ATMs very much.
So, and kind of finally, there's another question about identity and this battle over that quote we had in the very beginning, and the battle over who controls identity and what identity is. There's this whole notion of sovereign identity that's been battling against this idea. There's the theoretical framework. So talk a bit about that. I mean, to me, this is also one of the major things is who controls this identity in a digital age and how we define that.
So if you want to really have anonymity, if you want to disappear, go off the grid, you have to go off of the entire web. You go onto the web and already they can find you. Most people who aren't incredibly sophisticated and disciplined in avoiding any bread trail, breadcrumbs. So that's going to exist. Also, again, back to blackmail. They're going to have the real identity and the real location of all kinds of folks. So, just very recently, it's broken that the border control agents have had this off-book network.
Oh, it's been horrible. We're going to cover that.
9,000
Yes,
folks
right.
who, engage in some of the worst stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so all that can see the benefit of having that made public, but that's the point. Whatever you do that's embarrassing, Facebook can sell or threaten to sell your identity. Or if Facebook doesn't want to be in that business, and it probably won't, it'll just sell it to other people who are in that business and say, us, not us. We had nothing to do with it, type of thing. And this can be used for good purposes, so we can't possibly regulate it. And that will be true at that point. The genie will be out of the box in that session. So yes, those are concerns as well. You won't be able to do much of anything where you have a private view, or if a number of like-minded folks want to trade their private views. And again, that's not unambiguously good stuff, as we've seen with the border agents, but you can also see why people would value that right.
Well, Bill Black, this has really been illuminating, and there's a whole lot more to this. I do want to explore just how you control things in the 21st century in the digital age, which gives a new definition to monopoly that we never had before as well, given what's going on, and that's something for us to explore.
Nancy Reagan, just say no.
Yes, Nancy, thank you. And Bill, thank you. It's always good to talk to you, Bill Black. Thank you so much for being with us.
Take care.
And we will cover this more because I think it's really critically important for us to look at where this digital world is taking us and how we control it. We've been talking to Bill Black, and I'm Mark Steiner here for the Real News Network. Thank you for joining us. Take care.